Hello, my name is Brian Dehn. This video is part of my master's project for San Jose State University and my Master's of Music in Education. I hope you enjoy the video, and if you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to contact me. All my contact information is at the end of the video. Now that the systems of Pythagorean tuning and just intonation are well understood, we can see how equal temperament was attractive. There were simpler concepts, everything is evenly spaced, we have enharmonics, and much more. However, I agree with many that we miss the sonority of these two earlier systems and their true consonant intervallic relationships. But music history is replete with stories of composers ignoring keys just because just intonation made them unpleasing to the ear. There was a need and a desire to have a system that could allow for movement to different keys within a single work. It really comes down to every system has its place. We also see now that there is no system that allows for perfect intonation in all styles, genres, and time periods. What we as conductors have to do is find the best choice when it comes to the literature that we choose to perform. This figure shows the three main systems and how they compare rationally, ratios, and irrationally, sense. Depending on the system we choose to use, we can adjust our pitch accordingly. Now, I do want to point out the holes in the rational representation, or those ratios of these intervals. To put it simply, these pitches were not used. They were actually considered inconsequential and thus not codified in any research I ever came upon. This is borne out in my limited anecdotal research. For example, I have rarely seen a D sharp or an A sharp going up from a C. I researched some 12-tone and atonal repertoire, but this necessitates equal tempered tuning anyway. So I have approximated that they would be in sense, so that we have more context in which to compare the three systems. As common sense tells us, the time period of the repertoire is imperative. If the composition is a solo vocal line, chant for example, then Pythagorean tuning should be followed. If there are harmonies in a composition wherein the thirds are considered consonant, it stands to reason that just intonation should be used. Due to the lack of adaptability in a performance by the piano and the wide range of repertoire written with that instrument, it should all match this tuning system. I think specifically about a Brahms repertoire, or some of Brahms' piano repertoire versus his a cappella works. Different tuning systems are needed. Norman Della Gioia wrote completely based on the piano and equal temperament, so even his a cappella sections should actually be tuned with equal temperament. The first point can be made really clearly and quite distinctly. If a choir is using a piano or organ in their repertoire, that specific tuning system must be followed. The piano cannot adjust, and therefore any other tuning idea would be futile. If strings or brass are used, a brief conversation about which system is being utilized, probably just intonation, 5 limit, will result in a much more satisfying performance. We just remind the choir about lowered thirds and sixths and the sevenths is prudent. Once a system is identified, it can be easily adjusted, and that's the beauty and the adaptability of the human voice. It also goes to the beauty and the adaptability of the choir director. Now let's say there's no accompaniment, truly a cappella. Then we can look at the score and see if it's melodically or chordally based. Now while there is some overlap, say early Baroque composers writing in the prima practica style like Palestrina, Vittoria, Tallis, Bird, as opposed to segunda practica, right, Monteverdi, Handel, Bach, Carissimi. Or how most modern composers clearly think about chords and the colors they create. Think Whittaker, Lauridsen, Gothrop, Mueller. As any conductor will tell you, most work, our score study, is done before the actual rehearsal. What I have chosen to do in my project is add yet another step. Do a hexachordal analysis when one is needed. When the lines are independent, or at the very least not dependent on another line to make musical sense, then do a simple 3-limit analysis. Where I have chordal material, I'll do the lattice analysis. My hope is that this will result in much time being saved by improving the learning process. It also guides you as the conductor what you should be listening for. And if the choir knows much of this already, well, I have noticed improved sight reading at the beginning, better intonation throughout the entire rehearsal process, and frankly, better improved stamina at concert time. A final word on conducting and how to gesturally allude to these harmonic ideals. Now, much better conductors than I have put out many books and videos on what the choir sees and how that affects how they sing. But none address conducting and harmonic issues in this context. And there are still things that we can and should do. Now, what I have seen in books by Green, Father Finn, Eichenberger, and others is that most agree that a conductor as a timekeeper is doing a large disservice to the art form. We must, as Edwin Gordon defined for us, audiate what we want. We must know what we want to hear. We cannot hear without considering tuning. When we have a tuning ideal in our mind, this should and will affect our conducting. Now, in my research for this project, I have found that there is no trick. It's very personal and very individualistic. Now, on the other hand, it is helpful to see what has worked for others. So, what I have come to find is a few gestures help remind our choirs of harmonic landmines. When we want a brighter sound, perhaps that little kick up to remind us to stay over our equal tempered ears, I found that palms up, eyebrows raised, a smile, all assist with this. When I need the sound to be under those 14 cents, keep the palms down. My posture becomes closed, or there's any other variety of moves. The droning of the fifth is helpful during rehearsals. We must also tune vowels. Standing order affects pitch, all the other vocal parts. All this complexity is also its beauty. The trick is to be honest, natural, and consistent. This all helps their ear, helps efficiency in the vocal mechanism, and above all, it helps the music come alive. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions or things to improve, well, there might be more videos to come. Thank you very much.